In 2017, Sony released the PlayStation 4 Pro. It had a 4K-capable graphics processor, 8 CPU cores, and a teraflop performance number that game journalists wrote thousands of articles about. The same year, Nintendo released the Switch. The Switch had a mobile chip from 2015 that was already 2 generations behind. It could not render games at 4K. It could barely render some games at 1080p. By any measurement the gaming industry has used for 30 years, the Switch was a weaker console. Nintendo sold 3 times more Switches than Sony sold PS4 Pros. This is not an anomaly. It is a pattern. Nintendo has, for 40 years, refused to make the most powerful console on the market. They have refused it every generation. And in most of those generations, they have made more money than the company that did make the most powerful console. The Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985 had an 8-bit processor when home computers had moved on to 16-bit. The Super Nintendo in 1991 had a slower CPU than the Sega Genesis it competed with. The Nintendo 64 used cartridges when Sony's PlayStation used CDs, which were cheaper to produce, held more data, and were what every other competitor was using. The GameCube used a tiny proprietary disc format that held a fraction of what a normal DVD held. The Wii in 2006 had specifications that were closer to the previous generation than the current one. The Wii U was so underpowered that third-party developers refused to port their games to it. The Switch, as already mentioned, was using a mobile chip from 2 years before its release. This pattern is so consistent that it cannot be an accident. To understand what Nintendo is doing, you have to understand what console manufacturers are usually selling. The conventional console business is a hardware loss business. Sony and Microsoft sell their consoles for less than they cost to manufacture. They lose hundreds of dollars on every unit sold. They recover the loss, eventually through software royalties, online subscription fees, and accessory sales. The reason they sell at a loss is that the console specifications matter for the marketing campaign. If your console cannot run Call of Duty at 60 frames per second in 4K, your competitor will run an ad showing theirs doing exactly that, and your customers will buy the other one. This trap is built into the conventional console business. To stay in the marketing race, you have to keep losing money on hardware. To recover the losses, you have to lock developers into your platform. To lock developers in, you have to subsidize their development costs. To subsidize their costs, you have to take a larger cut of their software revenue. To take a larger cut, the developers have to be sufficiently desperate to accept those terms, which means there must not be a competitor making better hardware available on better terms. The whole arrangement is exhausting, expensive, and structurally bad for everyone except the largest software publishers. Nintendo opted out of this trap. In 1985, Hiroshi Yamauchi, the third president of Nintendo, made a decision that defined the next 40 years of the company. He decided Nintendo would never compete on hardware specifications. Nintendo would compete on what the hardware enabled, not what the hardware contained. Every console Nintendo released would be the cheapest possible hardware that could deliver the experience Nintendo's software designers wanted to build. This decision had 2 immediate consequences. The first consequence was that Nintendo sold its hardware at a profit, always. Every Nintendo console since the original NES has been profitable on the day it launched. They have never lost money on hardware. They have never needed to recover losses through any other channel. This means Nintendo has not needed to squeeze developers, has not needed to charge premium royalties, has not needed to fund exclusive content, and has not needed to do any of the things their competitors have spent 40 years doing. The second consequence was that Nintendo's hardware decisions could be made by software designers rather than by marketing departments. The Game Boy was less powerful than its competitors because Gunpei Yokoi, its designer, believed that a portable device needed long battery life more than it needed color graphics. Nintendo's competitors made color portables that ran out of battery in 3 hours. The Game Boy ran for 30 hours on the same number of batteries. Yokoi was right. Nintendo sold over 100 million Game Boys. The competitors are forgotten. The Wii is the cleanest example. In 2006, Sony released the PlayStation 3, which was the most powerful console ever made. It cost $600 at launch. It lost money on every unit sold. It required an entirely new kind of disc format that was expensive and that very few developers knew how to write games for. Microsoft released the Xbox 360 a year earlier and was bleeding money trying to keep up. Nintendo released the Wii. The Wii cost $250. It had specifications similar to consoles from the previous generation. It did not play discs in HD. It did not have an internal hard drive. It did not have online gaming infrastructure worth speaking of. What it had was a motion controller. Industry analysts were dismissive. They said the Wii would sell to children and senior citizens and would not be a real competitor to the PS3 or Xbox 360. They were right about the audience. They were wrong about what that meant. The Wii sold 101 million units. The PS3 sold 87 million. The Xbox 360 sold 84 million. Nintendo made a profit on every single one of those 101 million Wiis. Sony and Microsoft did not. By the end of that console generation, Nintendo had made more money on the Wii than Sony and Microsoft had made on their consoles, combined. The Switch repeated the pattern. In 2017, the conventional console wisdom said the future was 4K resolution, ultra-high frame rates, and games that took $100 million to make. Nintendo released a console that could be played on a television or carried in a backpack. The same hardware, half the resolution, better games. The Switch has, as of this video, sold over 130 million units. The PS4 Pro has been discontinued. There is a lesson buried inside the Nintendo story that applies far beyond gaming. The conventional wisdom of any mature industry is what creates the trap. Sony and Microsoft are not stupid. They are following the conventional wisdom of their industry. The conventional wisdom of the console industry is that you must compete on specifications. Once you accept that premise, the rest of the trap follows automatically. Subsidized hardware, exclusive content, escalating costs, shrinking margins. Nintendo did not accept the premise. They asked a different question. They asked what people actually wanted from a video game console, which turned out to be fun games that they could play with friends and family. That question did not require the most powerful processor on the market. It did not require 4K resolution. It did not require a $600 console. It required only that the hardware not get in the way of the games. When you see an industry where every competitor is making the same kind of product, with the same kind of marketing, fighting on the same kind of specifications, look for the company that has opted out. They are usually the one making the most money, the one with the happiest customers, and the one whose competitors privately envy them. If you found this interesting, subscribe. We go deep on the strategies companies use to opt out of broken industry consensus. Drop your requests in the comments. Thanks for watching.